a bit of a hiccup. So it's possible, but that's the majority of the teams feel comfortable with the slot.
It's a big sort of confidence flex from Verstappen.
It could be. I mean, they haven't got anything to lose, have they? He's already won the championship. And yeah, why not?
So 24 laps, the sprint race. So it'll take about 35 minutes probably from start to finish. And then the grid will, for tomorrow, will be defined by a finishing order. It's dry out there and the risk of rain is 10%. And there are clouds in the sky, but none of them look particularly threatening, to be honest with you. So I think we're in for a dry next half hour or so. Points as well for the winner. So 8 points for wins, 7 for second, 6 for third, and so on until you get to 8th place, where you've got 1 point for the championship. And I think it's all just going to be eyes on Kevin Magnussen up at the front, because whilst we talk about, he got a bit of a run of glory today, let's say, and he says he's going to go maximum attack, and I don't disbelieve it, because Magnussen's a very attacking driver. Some points for Haas would be very good. Some good solid points for Haas today, and then a good starting grid position tomorrow, get more points tomorrow. That ultimately is going to be what their focus is, I think.
The starting position for tomorrow is the really attractive thing here, because I think, even in their wildest dreams, they're not imagining that they're going to stay in the top 2 or 3 cars today. But if they can stay in the points-paying positions for tomorrow's Grand Prix, that'll be a decent boost. And although I've said they don't have anything to lose, really, they are in a bit of a championship battle with a couple of other teams. They're not quite out of reach. So a good round here could set them up for an interesting finale in Abu Dhabi.
Well, the grid is now cleared, just the 20 cars waiting to go at the head of the formation lap. It's been about 10 years since Kevin Magnussen did a single-seater formation lap, and he's about to pull away now. His teammate Mick Schumacher starts at the back of the grid, and as the green flag waves and they pull away, this is the grid. It's Kevin Magnussen on pole position in the Haas. Max Verstappen will be second on the grid in the Red Bull, third George Russell, fourth Lando Norris, and fifth Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Then it's the 2 Alpines of Esteban Ocon and Fernando Alonso. Lewis Hamilton lines up in 8th place in the Mercedes, 9th is Sergio Perez, and 10th is Charles Leclerc. Outside the top 10, you've got Albon, Gasly, Vettel, Ricciardo, Stroll, the top 15. Tini is 16th on the mediums. Then the 2 Alfa Romeos of Zhou and Valtteri Bottas. 19th is Yuki Tsunoda, and 20th is Mick Schumacher. So, cars making their way around now, and here's Magnussen's radio.
Okay, have fun. That's Mark Slade on the radio, an engineer with quite a bit of pedigree himself. He was Raikkonen's engineer, if I remember correctly, so he's not himself, this isn't too unusual a position for Mark to be in, but yeah. So just trying to keep the bunch relatively close together. He's slowing down, although Max is trying to keep his distance as well. Max is going to be fully focused now on trying to get as much temperature into those mediums as he can, even though it's not a big disadvantage. He's going to want to make sure that he can have a good run at Kevin into the first corner. That's going to be by far the easiest place to overtake him.
George Russell lining up third on the grid for Lando Norris. It's 4:30 in Brazil, so the sun is not exactly setting, but there are long shadows now starting to be cast on the final section of the circuit as this undulating track that lives in this kind of mini amphitheatre, natural amphitheatre and natural bowl in Sao Paulo is about to play host to a sprint. It was quite the sprint last year with Hamilton charging through the field, and we're in for a very interesting sprint here as Kevin Magnussen, for maybe even the only time in his career, who knows, to be honest, is about to line up on pole position, lighting up the rears on his way to the grid. That was some good commitment to tyre temps there.
Yep, not leaving anything to chance there. But now he's got a decent weight. There's still a few cars coming out of the last corner, and it's going to be a tense wait for him as he's looking in his mirrors to get an idea of how long he's going to have to sit there.
His first ever pole position, and it's about to get underway with this 24-lap sprint here on Sports Extra. His teammate Mick Schumacher is lining up at the back of the field in the other Haas. How much progress can he make over the course of the next 35 minutes or so? Sebastian Vettel pulls into position, the Brazilian flag on the roof of his helmet, and everyone now's in place. All eyes on Kevin Magnussen then. First career pole position in Formula One, but he's got Verstappen alongside him. Russell and Norris are on the second row. The sprint begins now, and it's a pretty decent start from Magnussen, and Russell's got a good start compared to Verstappen. He goes to the outside into turn one, but he's not able to do anything about it. And Verstappen holds on to second place. Third is still Russell. Fourth is still Norris. Kevin Magnussen leads the way. Huge slide for Norris, coming through the left-hander of turn three. And that means that Carlos Sainz is going to get to the outside of him on the run down into turn four. To the Ocon, three wide into four, and Ocon just about bails out of it. He pushes his teammate wide though. Alonso gets all out of shape, and Hamilton now will try and take advantage and get ahead of Fernando Alonso coming up into turn six, and he's not quite able to. So lots of jostling at the start, but the order hasn't actually changed at all.
I mean, for a set of drivers that have all been told to take it easy, this is only a sprint race. Oh my God, that was quite close, especially the two Alpines. I mean, no love lost between Ocon and Alonso there. And now we're seeing the Aston Martins all over the back of AlphaTauri and fighting with Ricciardo as well.
But as they come out of the final corner at Sao and out to complete lap one, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas is still leading the way. But Max Verstappen is right behind him as they come over the hill. I tell you who's closest though, it's George Russell. Russell's right on the back of Verstappen as they come down to the center S. This has got to be a chance for Russell, hasn't it? Does he dive to the inside? He does not. Verstappen covers the inside, and Russell thinks about the long way round, can't pull it off, and he's now got a great run coming out of Curva del Sol as well. Sainz has managed to get ahead of the McLaren. They're damaged for Alonso's car. Alonso and the Alpine has picked up damage. Russell's on the attack on Verstappen again, but still Verstappen is able to cover the inside. Russell tries to get the undercut and the cutback as they come through turns 5 and 6. There's nothing he can do about it. Russell is on an absolute mission here.
It's those mediums for Verstappen. He hasn't got the much temperature just yet, and he's also got the dirty air of Magnussen to deal with whilst trying to defend from Russell. Russell has to use the extra grip that he's got right now to get past that Red Bull, because it's going to be a different story soon, and he's already struggling with the straight line speed of that Red Bull to actually get past him.
Alonso's down into 10th place, and I think he'll be in the pits at the end of this lap. You'd have to suspect, because there was quite a lot of damage to the front wing of the Alpine. Through Sao again and out to complete lap 2 comes Kevin Magnussen, still half a second. Max Verstappen, with Russell in third, 4 tenths further back. Sainz is in fourth, fifth is Norris, sixth is Ocon, but now it's going to be sixth for Lewis Hamilton. To the inside of Ocon, coming down the start-finish straight, and he's Magnussen. Verstappen's getting Magnussen. Verstappen's got ahead of Kevin Magnussen into turn 1, so Verstappen is back into the lead of the sprint. Well, not back into, but he's taken it away from Kevin Magnussen into the first corner. Magnussen is tucked right up behind Verstappen, but he's not able to get back through. So Verstappen leads, Magnussen second, Russell is third, Sainz is fourth, Norris is fifth, Hamilton is sixth, Ocon is seventh, Perez is eighth, Leclerc is ninth, Gasly is 10th, Fernando Alonso has pitted, and Verstappen just had so much straight line speed at the end of the straight he breezed by.
Yeah, I think the window of opportunity to beat Max Verstappen has closed. The mediums are up to temperature, and he's now into the lead of the race. You know, the softs are only going to get weaker relative to the mediums, so that's it. And he had so much straight line speed, as you say. It was an easy pass on Magnussen. He didn't fight that one.
DRS is only enabled now, so he will have DRS this time, Kevin Magnussen. I think he's just about close enough to the back of Verstappen, but it's going to be a tight one, and Russell's in a great position here to try and get through. He's tucked underneath the rear wing of Magnussen, goes to the outside, but Magnussen's got no answer here because he doesn't have DRS. Russell does, and Russell's up into second place. Magnussen down to third, and now Carlos Sainz will be the next driver to try and attack him. Alonso's back out from his pit stop, and Perez has just got ahead of Ocon and up into 7th place. The front wing end plate from Alonso was actually on the outside of the sort of long left-hander on the start-finish straight, so that's come off at an odd point. And there's a lunge and a half from Carlos Sainz, and he's up into 3rd place now ahead of Kevin Magnussen. Said that from a long way back into turn 4.
Kevin was very kind there. He could have closed the door, but it was one of those that perhaps in his very flexible vibrating mirrors, he wasn't sure if Sainz was fully alongside. We're now on board with Alonso, a replay of what happened in the first lap. So they turn into turn 4. He gets around the outside of Ocon. He gets pushed all the way over the exit curve, like a massive tank slapper. and manages to keep it going. And no, he didn't quite manage to avoid contact. So that's where the damage to the end plate first happened. And now, separate replay, end of the first lap. Are we going to see the end plate fly off?
I lost the win, I think, thanks to our friend.
Wow. So
That could have been.
it was a separate incident. Ocon moving on the straight. I'd like to see that again if there was more than one change of direction there. And Alonso clipped him on the rear wheel while trying to pass.
Hamilton up into 5th place. He gets ahead of Lando Norris coming into the Center S. Could have been another big one there for Alonso, in the same way that his Austin crash with Stroll could have been huge. That could have been an airplane crash as well.
Yeah, it was very, very close.
5 of 24. Verstappen leading, 7/10 ahead of George Russell. Then it's a second back to Carlos Sainz in 3rd position. Magnussen 4th. Hamilton's up into 5th. Norris is 6th. Perez is 7th. Ocon is 8th. The man making no progress at the moment is Charles Leclerc, the Ferrari driver, running in 9th position, still stuck behind Esteban Ocon. So he's gained 1 place at the start, and that's because of Alonso pitting. So no progress at all from Leclerc. Gasly completes the top 10. Stroll and Vettel 11th and 12th. 13th for Ricciardo. 14th is Mick Schumacher. So he's gained another place. I think he overtook Albon on that last lap, did Mick Schumacher. So he's on a bit of a charge and is up into 14th. Then it's Albon and Latifi behind.
So he pushed me in turn 4, and then finally on the straight. Yeah, well done. Yeah, copy that, mate.
So Alonso delivering some radio sass with regards to his teammate Esteban Ocon. Hamilton here is going to pass Magnussen next to the inside, and Hamilton up into 4th position. Magnussen down into 5th. But now comes the interesting question of how much Magnussen can fight with Lando Norris and the like. Although Norris is looking pretty quick and has caught the back of him fairly rapidly, I would suggest.
Yeah, Norris seems to be as quick as Hamilton in front at this stage. So I think K-Mag's going to start to struggle, but there is a big gap then behind Perez, who's currently 7th, so he might be able to hold on for a little bit longer. Leclerc has managed to get past Ocon now, so he's made that first move. And here we are on board with Sainz. Dodges to the outside of Norris, who defends, tries to do the cutback, and Norris goes very deep in turn 1, around the outside turn 2, job done.
So that's how Carlos Sainz got up into 3rd position then. So Verstappen leading, Russell 2nd, Carlos Sainz in 3rd. We're on lap 6 of 24. And Magnussen is in 4th position. But Hamilton's got past him, hasn't he? So Hamilton's in 4th position, Magnussen's in 5th place. 6th is Norris, and 7th is Sergio Perez. So this Perez-Norris-Magnussen fight, 7th, 6th and 5th, is going to be interesting now. And Perez is pretty close to the back of Norris as they come down towards the Center S, but he's wasn't sure what Perez was up to there, honestly. I was about to say he was too far back. Then he looked to the inside, but never actually fully sent it, to be honest, and remains in 7th.
I think that was one of those who just showed the nose, maybe unsettle him a little bit if you're behind a driver that's a little bit more skittish, perhaps. But Lando, not bothered at all, carried on, took the apex, and Perez is going to have to be a little bit closer to really get the full effect of that toe.
Latifi's dropping down positions. Sonoda and Joe have both got past him. And I think there's damage to the side of Ocon's car after that contact with Alonso. He's now back behind Pierre Gasly. So he got quite a big hit on the side pod.
There's a big gaping hole in the side of that car. I'm not sure if it's... to be honest, if there was any structural damage or any serious issue, we would have seen it already. So he's probably going to be okay to the end, but there's no doubt some performance loss.
A little bit of a shoot in the foot, though, for the Alpine team.
Not the first time they've struggled with each other, is it?
So Magnussen still running in 5th place, and at the moment he's 0.8 of a second ahead of Lando Norris and 0.3 ahead of Perez. So he's not under attack this time, Kevin Magnussen, but Norris is under attack from Perez, and it's a nice late move on the brakes for Sergio Perez, and he gets up into 6th position ahead of Norris, and Magnussen is his next target. It's quite close up at the front. There's only 0.8 of a second between Verstappen in the lead and Russell in 2nd position.
Yeah, the last lap they were very...
And there's lots of smoke, isn't there, from the back of Perez's car?
There was.
Really smoky.
It's gone now. It was going through the turn for left-handers. Sometimes that could be a bit of an oil overfill, just burning off, but... yeah, keep an eye on that. Would be odd though it's appearing now. getting a replay of Ocon losing a position to Pierre Gasly, and the Aston Martins also jostling for position, and I think that's Stroll going through on the inside. Now more with Russell chasing down Verstappen going into turn 4.
Track limits turn 4. Copy.
So that's Russell reporting Verstappen for track limits. It's the sort of thing we saw towards the end of the Grand Prix in Austin. Here comes Perez on the back of Magnussen, and this is going to be another straightforward move for Sergio Perez. A more straightforward move for Sergio Perez to the inside, and he's now up into 5th spot. Vettel is attacking Stroll for 11th position in the Aston Martin, goes to the inside. Sebastian Vettel, wheel to wheel into the braking zone, almost so late on the brakes that they crash into the back of Esteban Ocon ahead, but they managed to avoid it. Vettel now is trying to go around the outside at turn 3. Stroll opens the DRS, Vettel to the inside, and Vettel's been pushed onto the grass. He keeps his foot in, and the place where he collided with his teammate Leclerc back in 2019, almost the scene of another collision, this time with his Aston Martin teammate, but that was a bit cheeky from Stroll.
My God, but it was one of those, you knew that Lance was going to want to come over and start to defend that line, but Seb was already there. As soon as they came out of the long sweeping turn 3, he had his front wheels alongside, and then he put 2 wheels on the grass and was almost skidding along the edge of the track.
Okay, he says on the radio.
Yeah, no further explanation required. Those two have been racing with each other pretty hard since Seb obviously decided that he was going to not carry on beyond this year.
And it wasn't a dissimilar move to Stroll's Alonso in Austin that we were talking about a few moments ago. I think Stroll's lost DRS this time though, so this should be a fairly straightforward move for Vettel. He goes to the inside, he has the DRS, Stroll tucks back into the slipstream, but doesn't fancy a late lunge back. They're fighting over 11th place. Russell has dropped out of DRS range of Max Verstappen now up at the front, so Verstappen leading 1.1 seconds ahead of Russell. We're on 10 of 24, 1.5 seconds back to Carlos Sainz, 2.3 seconds back to Hamilton, 3 seconds from Hamilton to Perez, and then 1.7 seconds back to Magnussen. And Leclerc is now on the back of Magnussen. And on that last lap, Lando Norris was 0.06 quicker than Kevin Magnussen. So Magnussen might be able to settle into this 6th spot now, I think.
The incident involving cars 5 and 18 has been noted by the stewards, not investigating it yet, but they've seen it. But anyway, Ricciardo now looking to follow Vettel through and try and get past Stroll. He's looking pretty racy, able to stay right on Stroll's bumper through the last sector here. He's going to get a good run now through the last corner, and if he doesn't make a mistake, should be a pretty easy pass.
Russell's got back within DRS range of Verstappen here, so that's very interesting. Ricciardo now on the back of Stroll goes to the outside, coming down in towards turn 1. There's also Ocon losing out to Vettel, so Vettel's up into 10th position now. So once again, the Aston Martin's not qualifying well, but making good progress through in the race. Russell's only half a second back from Verstappen as they're coming through the middle sector. It's really close between the two of them.
Looking at the lap times, they are swapping around a little bit. At one stage they were matching each other very closely. Then Verstappen pulled out nearly second on one lap. Then George has pulled that all back on the previous lap. So the pendulum keeps swinging back and forth here. And it looks like, certainly for now, the soft tyre is still working very well for George. On Ocon, by the way, his lap times look pretty poor now. I think that damage is starting to have more of an effect on him. He's dropping down the order fairly quickly.
Russell coming out onto the start-finish straight, and there's just nothing he can do about the Red Bull. He's in a great slipstream with the DRS, and he's closing and closing on the run into turn 1, and he makes Verstappen cover the inside. So Verstappen is now having to go a little bit defensive. He's offline through the center S. Russell on the power. He'll have DRS. He goes to the outside at Curva del Sol, then tucks back into the slipstream. Verstappen covers the inside. DRS open for Russell as he goes to the outside. Turn 4, Russell squeezes him, and Verstappen holds his nerve. Russell goes for the cutback coming out of 4 and up into 5, but they both get a little bit wiggly, and Verstappen is able to hold the position for the moment. This is a lot of fun.
My God, they were very, very close to interlocking wheels on the run down to turn 4. They both started to make that move towards each other just to try and get the other to back down. Neither did, and it was very, very close to tears, but they managed to avoid it. And then again, as George tried to get the cut back through turn 4, He had a little bit of a wiggle, bit of wheel spin, which just cost him the momentum he needed to take the inside line on the exit there.
Have these two ever raced each other? Sort of wheel-to-wheel style? I can't really think of many examples. Maybe when Verstappen was coming through the field in Hungary, or a few coming through the fields, but not sort of real squabble stuff.
And certainly not for the lead of a race.
Absolutely, and Russell is pretty close again now. A little bit further back maybe than last time, but he's also getting done. Does he fancy a late lunge? He again sends it to the outside, coming into the first corner. Can he get all the way around the outside? No, not quite. But he's got another good drive coming out of turn 2. Verstappen is defending very nicely indeed. Russell will want to get to the inside, but he can't do it. Verstappen on the inside. They're wheel to wheel again, coming down into the Cedar de la. And Verstappen holds the place again. Russell tries to get the drive. He's done a much better job this time. They're side by side now, up towards turn 6 of Ferradura. Verstappen, though, is doing a brilliant job to keep his car on the inside in the perfect place every time. Really good racing this, as they come now into the middle section down through Pinheiro. There is a yellow flag out there. Albon's dropping down the order, so Albon might be in a little bit of trouble. He's stopped on the exit of turn 2, and Alex Albon looks like a mechanical to me. He's kind of pulled off the road, and that might well bring out a virtual safety car, or indeed a full safety car. They're coming out onto the start-finish straight now, and you'd hope it would have been deployed by now, to be perfectly honest with you, because they're all going to arrive at racing speed. DRS is disabled for Russell this time through, but the track is now green again. I don't know where Albon's car is. He must have been well off the road he must have managed to find a little escape road. But he didn't get DRS that time, and everyone's coming with Russell here because they're fighting.
Yeah, they're all closing up, and it's the lap times that they've been doing at the front because of that fighting. They've dropped off more than a second, 2 seconds more like. So that's why we're seeing the Ferrari of Sainz and even Lewis now starting to catch back up. And if George can get Max to commit to that defensive line more often, it's just going to create more of an issue for him.
I hit some debris, but yeah, let's see.
Understood. So Verstappen saying he hit some debris, but don't know when that radio message was from, but Russell's on a real charge here, and Sainz is up there too. That's very, very wide from Verstappen. I think you can do varying lines through that Pico de Pato corner, but still seemed a bit wider than maybe he would have liked. He's doing, actually, they're quite different lines, both of them, into Junsao as well. This is the closest Russell's been.
Close. This is going to be close enough to have a go into turn 1 if they've got the DRS back enabled, and it is. George cracks it open. He's going to be looking to at least force Max to the inside line to get a cut back again, but he might be close enough to have a go. He goes to the outside, Max inside. Slows it right down, really setting himself up for the run towards turn 4 now. He's back in the slipstream through turn 3.
We're going to be side by side into turn 4 again. Russell determined to try and get the inside coming into Decido do Lago, but he's got the lead, Russell. Russell's got ahead. He was close enough that with the DRS, he pulled ahead of Verstappen, and George Russell leads the sprint. It's really close behind between Sainz and Hamilton as well, but Russell leads. Verstappen down to 2nd, Sainz in 3rd, Hamilton 4th.
Both of the Mercedes are coming on strong at the moment. Lewis is all over the back of Sainz as well, so they're really, really coming into their own now. So we're getting a replay, turn 3. George is setting himself up, and he's actually a little bit further in previous laps, so that means he gets more time in the slipstream, more of a slingshot effect, and with the DRS, he's able to get clean around the outside.
Come on, George.
George Russell yet to win a Formula 1 Grand Prix, and the sprint won't count, but it would book him pole position for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Here comes Hamilton on the back of Sainz. I don't think Sainz has DRS here. No, he doesn't. So Hamilton might be able to get him into 3rd place. He's right under the slipstream of the Ferrari driver. Does he fancy the lunge into 1? Sainz covers it off. Hamilton goes to the outside and then sweeps down through the center S and gets back on the power. He's a little bit further back on the Ferrari than Russell was on the Red Bull, but the straight line speed differential is not quite as big, so again Sainz with a pretty late move coming into the Decido de Lago holds the plate. Russell is sprinting clear, 1.6 seconds ahead of Verstappen. Verstappen has got no answer. It's all about the tyres now for Russell. Oh, to the inside at Ferradura went Hamilton, but make it stick.
Sainz is leaving it very, very late to make his defensive moves, and Hamilton is really harassing him now. He's got a lot more speed, and the straight line speed of that Mercedes is actually looking pretty good for a change.
Especially in that fight with Verstappen, I thought Russell would have no chance, but he did manage to pull it off. So George Russell leads on lap 16 of 24, 8 to go at the end of this one. The fight is on for, and Verstappen's not getting away from Sainz here either. So you just wonder, it's too early to say maybe, but have Red Bull made the wrong tyre choice?
It's quite possible, and the softs certainly aren't showing any signs of slowing down at the moment. It could be that the medium was too hard, and he's suffering with a little bit of graining and struggling to get them to really stay in that working window.
10-second time penalty for Lance Stroll for a dangerous manoeuvre, which would have been the one with his teammate Sebastian Vettel. Max Verstappen's just had his first warning for track limits, and that was up at turn 4. So that'll be one that he'll want to keep an eye on. But he's not getting away here from Sainz in the Ferrari or Hamilton in the Mercedes as they come through the middle sector. Bottas has got ahead of Ocon now as well. So Ocon's all the way down to 16th. The top 10 are Russell, Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, Perez, the top 5. Then Leclerc, Magnussen, Norris, Gasly and Vettel, the top 10. Schumacher is on the attack, trying to get ahead of Lance Stroll in their fight over 12th position, but he does have a 10-second time penalty, does Stroll, so he doesn't have to get the job done on track, Schumacher, but he's having a pretty good drive today. If yesterday was a bit of a struggle and a bit of a maybe sign Nico Hulkenberg message, today is doing a good job, no doubt about that. Lap 17 of 24.
It's looking like Hamilton now. Sainz has got into the DRS of Verstappen. He's going to have a much harder time getting past the Ferrari. He's going to have to hope that the two of them will get tangled up with each other and slow each other down enough as we get a replay of the reason why Stroll has had that 10-second penalty. And yeah, just moved over too late, and Seb already had his wheels alongside and didn't leave enough space. Simple as.
So George Russell leading the sprint on lap 18 of 24. Max Verstappen is in second place, but he's only just ahead of Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari as they come up to Pico de Pato. And at turn 10, and then drop down the hill through the left at Mergulho. And whoa, big slide from Hamilton as he came through. Sorry, they were at Pinheirino. So, and a bit of a slide from Hamilton as he came down through that left-hander. Now they're at Pico de Pato and down through Mergulho. And Hamilton is looking quick, but as you say, with Sainz having the DRS as well, Verstappen, it's going to be a tough one for Hamilton to get ahead of Sainz, and he's a bit wide at the apex at Junsao as well, and Sainz is going to be the one here on the attack on the back of Max Verstappen. The fight is on for second place. Second place for Verstappen at the moment. Sainz is closing in on him in the Ferrari, closing down towards the first corner. Does Sainz fancy the lunge? He does. Carlos Sainz sends it. They bang wheels, and Sainz makes the move and clips Verstappen's front wing on its way back across. Some ruthless work there from Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, and Hamilton's going to get a run now on Verstappen. He pings open the DRS, coming down into turn 4. Verstappen covers the inside, and there's debris falling all over the place. It's come off Verstappen's front left end plate, and Hamilton goes to the inside of Verstappen. They're side by side. He'll be on the outside now for Ferradura, and Verstappen squeezes him out and holds on to third place, but Carlos Sainz is up into second place. Verstappen's down to third and has damage on the front wing of his car.
God, yeah, that was a really, really strong move by Sainz. He saw Max want to come over to defend and just said, nope, I'm having the inside line.
Hamilton is now getting very impatient to try and get ahead of Verstappen because he knows that Sainz is getting away from him. He goes to the outside of Mergulho. Does he fancy keeping that one in? No, he does not, but this should be a kind of straightforward pass for Hamilton here as he comes into Junsao. Takes a wide line through. Verstappen has a bit of a slide on the rear, but Hamilton is right underneath the rear wing of Verstappen, and he should be moving up into third place. 5 laps to go. DRS open. Hamilton to the outside, and Verstappen is still there on the inside, but he's got no response. And Hamilton is up into third spot, and Verstappen drops down to fourth. And not only are we getting a very entertaining sprint race here, we're getting a very tasty grid set up for tomorrow's Grand Prix. Where's the pace for? Is it just the mediums?
I don't know. It's something that is hard to say because he's the only one out there, apart from Latifi, who, by the way, he's 6 seconds. No, sorry, seconds off the back of the field. So it's not working well for either of them, it looks like. And he's now lost the entire end plate on one side of his wing.
Norris has got ahead of Magnussen and up into 7th position. So Norris in the McLaren up to 7th, Magnussen down to 8th. But he is still fairly comfortably clear of Pierre Gasly. And we're on lap 20 of 24. Russell leading, Sainz second, Hamilton third. Verstappen took the lead on about lap 2 and has now dropped back into 4th place. And his teammate Sergio Perez is only 4 seconds back from him. He was 2 seconds quicker on that last lap, although that's an unfair comparison because Verstappen was fighting. The BBC's chief F1 writer, Andrew Benson, has things to say.
So we know that Verstappen said he ran over some debris. If you remember at Silverstone, he ran over some debris there, and that had a massive effect on his pace and performance through that Grand Prix. He dropped down to 7th or 8th place, I seem to remember, by the end. His Sainz's radio.
I'm running out of time.
Hamilton 1.6 behind, 1.6 behind, so try your best. Also, he's suffering.
Well, this is going to be the interesting thing, whether it comes back to Verstappen, but he has got that damage.
But we also know that Russell was staying with him long before we heard that radio message. So I think Russell's pace was genuine, at least in that sense. We don't know what's happened to Verstappen since that radio message.
No, it's very true. But as you say, it didn't feel like the damage was the cause of this. I think that the front wing damage is going to be the bigger problem currently for Verstappen. But Sainz saying he's running out of tyres, running in 2nd place with Hamilton closing in. And I think it was fair enough from Sainz. It was robust for sure, but I don't think it's anything penalty worthy.
No, for me it was hard but fair. He took the inside line. He was very robust, and he drove Max out to the outside to ensure that he couldn't get the cutback. Max just tried to come back a bit too early.
Let's just keep the pressure on.
3 laps to go. Hamilton being told, keep the pressure on. Carlos Sainz, who's running in 2nd place and saying he's struggling with his tyres. Verstappen is 2.5 seconds back from those top 3 of Russell, Sainz and Hamilton. Verstappen 4th, Perez 5th, Leclerc in 6th, Norris, Magnussen, Vettel and Gasly, the rest of the top 10.
Of the top 3, it was Hamilton that was quickest on that last tour. Both Russell and Sainz on a 15.5 and Hamilton just dipping into the 15.3s. So he's still looking pretty strong here, even if he's had to delay his onslaught onto Sainz.
There's going to be 2 to go at the end of this one. So he's only going to get 2 more shots at DRS and down into turn 1. He doesn't look like he's making a huge amount of progress on the back of Sainz at the moment. Russell is 4 seconds up the road from the Ferrari man in 2nd position. Hamilton in 3rd, and the gap goes up a little on this lap to 1.5 seconds. So Hamilton's struggling a little, not as much as Verstappen though, who's getting closed in on by Sergio Perez. I don't think they'll swap positions at any point, but 2 to go now. George Russell starts his penultimate lap of the sprint, and what a fun little sprint it's been.
Just to add a little bit of spice, here's Perez.
Am I going to have his position? Is the point?
So he's asking if he can have some extra points for 2nd in the championship. I was just going to say that Ocon has now dropped all the way down to 17th, presumably partly due to that damage. And guess who is less than a second in his tail going into the final lap? Yes, it is Mr. Fernando Alonso looking for revenge, I suspect. But also, housekeeping, Magnussen, he is holding on to that final point at the moment. Vettel is bearing down, but he's over 2 seconds away with 1.5 laps to go. That might be too much. So he could hold on for a point for all of his hard work yesterday in qualifying. That's not a bad result.
No, absolutely not. So Russell is leading the way of 4 seconds clear of Carlos Sainz still. Hamilton's got the gap down to 1.2 seconds, so he's chipped away by 0.3 so far around this lap, but I don't think that is going to be enough. He comes out over the start-finish straight now to start the final lap. Alonso's got ahead of Esteban Ocon, and that was into turn 4, so Alonso back ahead of Ocon. But 17th and 18th on the grid tomorrow for Alpine is going to be a tough one, especially with Norris in 7th place, so we'll see how that one transpires. Big slide from Hamilton, the rear not exactly underneath him as he came through the downhill left-hander of turn 1. He's got into DRS range right at the end, but it would need to be quite a drag race over the line if he's going to do it. Kind of not dissimilar to he and a few years ago in 2019 when they last went when Gasly his first podium in Formula One. But Russell leading on the final lap, Sainz second, Hamilton third, and a very rare bad day for Red Bull and Verstappen. And whether that's a bad choice, a wrong choice in terms of the tyre, because you can't help but feel, we'll get into this more in the Checker Flag podcast, which you'll be able to download later. If this were Ferrari and they'd put Leclerc on the mediums and from pole, if this was happening, we'd be abolishing
it. It would be a whole thing, wouldn't it? Going through the last corner now. George Russell coming across the line.
What a drive. George Russell comes through the final corner, crashed out of qualifying yesterday, but he wins the sprint. George Russell wins the sprint in Brazil, and Sainz finishes second. Hamilton just 0.6 of a second back in third, and it's fourth across the line for Max Verstappen. The champion who led the early stages only finishes in fourth, fifth for Sergio Perez, sixth for Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris is going to come through in about 12 seconds time. Now here he comes out of the final corner, so that'll be seventh for Lando Norris. It'll be eighth for Kevin Magnussen, ninth for Sebastian Vettel, 10th for Pierre Gasly, and an 8th place finish for Kevin Magnussen, having started on pole position, is not a bad result, and I think they'll be pleased with that going into the Grand Prix tomorrow.
Yeah, it's better than they might have expected, and he held on well while he could, but yeah, this man, great job. Gonna hear from Russell now.
That's how we roll, baby. That's how we roll. Very nicely done. Very nicely done. Big points tomorrow. Let's go.
We've seen many times this season, Andrew Benson has written about it many times, challenge Verstappen. Start from 15th on the grid. Can he still win? 10th, yes. Spin in Hungary. Can he still win? Yes. After the pace today, okay, tyre differences and stuff. Fourth on the grid with Russell, Sainz and Hamilton ahead of him. Interested to see that.
A good race. Yeah. You nailed it.
Very interested to see what the Grand Prix is tomorrow.
That was a decent performance by Sainz when you look at the relative race of Leclerc as well, wasn't it? Because Leclerc really struggled to make progress. He did get up into sixth. He passed Magnussen and Norris, but that was it. There really wasn't a lot of movement for him.
Hamilton returning into the pit lane. Here's his radio after finishing third.
Mega job, guys. Mega. Congrats to George. That's awesome.
So just remember, Sainz has got a penalty for tomorrow. So, that should put us on the front row.
Thank you, Bono. I'd forgotten about that. Carlos Sainz, a 5-place grid drop. So that means it will be a front row for Mercedes tomorrow with Verstappen third on the grid and Perez fourth. So Mercedes 1-2, Red Bull 3-4. And then I think it'll be Leclerc in fifth and Sainz in Norris sixth and Sainz seventh is my rough estimations of how the grid will line up. So Mercedes front row lockout for the Grand Prix tomorrow. Russell stands on top of his car and a little pump of the fists in his pale blue helmet before going to high five his mechanics. Must be a weird feeling to take your first win that isn't your first win.
Yeah, you'd almost have mixed feelings, wouldn't you? Like, can I properly celebrate this? I don't know. Is it a proper win? I think it is a proper win. He worked hard for it today, even if it's a shorter distance. The move that he pulled on Max and even the attempts that he made in the previous laps, they were well thought out, and he really had to commit to it. So, fair play. It was a really, really strong race for him, and great to see the Mercedes up front again.
So, George Russell taking the win in the sprint. Some good fights as well with him, and it was real nice. I don't like this and happy to declare it, but it wasn't DRS-y racing, was it? It was good, kind of switchbacky, overtaking-y kind of vibe today.
Yeah, the DRS did its job today, which is it just brought them into the fight, and it didn't do it for them. So that was great to see, and we saw a lot of fights going into turn 4. It seemed like almost the favoured spot over turn 1 today, which is interesting, but it just unraveled at one point for Max, didn't it? As soon as he lost the place to George and then was coming under attack from Sainz and had the damage, it just all started to implode on him, didn't it? I'm still a bit surprised that actually they didn't give Perez that position, because he does need the points.
Come on,
this is Red Bull.
grow up.
Well, yeah, hear me out, because there would be a positive for Verstappen. He'd start on the clean side of the grid tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's worth something.
that's fair.
Just, putting it out there.
That's a fair point. A hug and an embrace between George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. And we'll be hearing from the top three in a moment. And then we will be recording the Checker Flag podcast, which you'll be able to download later or have a listen tomorrow morning, because you've got plenty of time before the race gets underway at 6 p.m. in the UK tomorrow. And that'll be here on Sports Extra and the BBC Sport website. And wherever you're listening now, you'll be able to hear the Grand Prix at 6 o'clock tomorrow. So 22 hours from now, that race will be getting underway. So you've got all day to listen to the Checker Flag podcast. But we are going to hear from the top three in a moment. And George Russell winning for the first time in Formula One. But can he win the Grand Prix tomorrow from pole position? That's where he'll be starting. Hamilton alongside him on the front row, but then it will be the Red Bulls, and you have to imagine that they will come back fighting, and I think they'll have learned a lot from this sprint today. And it's still very strange that Verstappen was the only one going on the medium tyres. Again, we'll get more bogged down in that on the Checker Flag podcast later on. The rest of the finishing order again: Russell, Sainz, Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Norris, Magnussen, Vettel and Gasly, the top 10. Ricciardo in 11th. 12th for Mick Schumacher was good. I would declare that good. From last, he made up 5 places on the opening lap, but then he kept picking people off.
Yep, he kept moving forwards, which is no mean feat around here.
13th for Joe, 14th for Bottas, 15th and 18th on the grid will be Alonso and Ocon for Alpine. So they're going to have their work cut out tomorrow, because that's a couple more points back in McLaren's favour towards the... Alpine is still ahead, but back to McLaren.
It's terrible timing in the championship battle for them. They
do just keep imploding Alpine in various different ways.
Yeah, but it's gone from looking like they have this sewn up to really looking like a risk going into the final races.
Alonso 15th, then Tsunoda 16th, Stroll 17th, Ocon 18th, 19th for Latifi, 20th for Alex Albon. I think the top 3 went back into the pit lane when they weren't meant to. So I think that's why we're having a bit of a delay before we hear from them, because Naomi Schiff was waiting on the grid and they all drove back into the pit lane. So now they're all having to trudge along the track. And then, well, actually, maybe not, because it looked like all the 1, 2, 3 positions were there in Parc Fermé, weren't they? So maybe the plan was to make them walk all along.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this was planned. It was looking a bit chaotic, I have to say.
Yeah.
Everyone hastily constructing an interview area.
We won't get too bogged down in that on the Checker Flag podcast. There's much more to talk about than that, as Carlos Sainz dons his cap, and the cheers for the drivers on the grid as George Russell waves to the crowd, as does Lewis Hamilton. The 2 Mercedes drivers starting on the front row. I wonder when the last Mercedes front row lockout was. Probably some point last year, but when exactly, it eludes me.
It feels like a long time ago. And when was the last time that Max Verstappen finished a race but wasn't on the podium? That's going to be a while.
Singapore. But apart from that, not very often. Not one where he was leading, fairly comfortably. Felipe Massa hands a medal to Lewis Hamilton. A little bit of a 2008 flashback. Second on this sort of little podium thing is going to be Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari in a moment. As he and George Russell have a little bit of a conversation. Sainz goes up to stand in the second spot and waves to the crowd and a thumbs up to them in the grandstand. And he too, from the former Ferrari man Felipe Massa, receives a little silver medal. And I think this will mean something to Russell, this win in the sprint. If he's going to get a gold medal out of it, first time winning a race, it's not the big one, it's a good one. It's going to go up there, first pole in Hungary, first sprint win here.
Yeah, he's sort of working his way up in order, isn't he? Pole, then sprint win, then hopefully at one stage a Grand Prix win. But it was a good race. I think he'll take a lot of enjoyment out of that, and it gives him a great chance for tomorrow. So let's see.
So this was always the plan, actually, that they would park in the pit lane and walk to the grid. So there we go. And Russell now has the gold medal around his neck. And after winning the sprint, we can hear from him now.
Massive congratulations, George. Your first win, sprint win. How was that race for you?
Yeah, it was incredible. I wasn't expecting to have that much pace, but I think, it goes to show all the hard work everybody's putting in and the progress we as a team have made. And these last 3 races since Austin, the car's been feeling really great. Obviously, it's difficult to know how Max would have got on had he been on the soft tyres, but nevertheless, standing here is a great feeling.
Well, there was plenty of action on track during the race. We had a great time watching it. Third time lucky on Max, you made it round, and then it seemed smooth sailing for you from there.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit difficult because obviously this is a sprint race and you got to manage that risk reward. So even though I was dying to get that victory, I didn't want to risk it too much and end up in with no points and starting in the back. But, we made it stick third time lucky, yeah.
Well, it's going to be a front row start for Mercedes tomorrow because Carlos has got a penalty. What do you guys think you can do for the team here?
I mean, it's crazy to think we're both starting in the front row, and Lewis did a great job coming from P8, so it's going to be exciting. And I'm sure Max is going to be flying tomorrow coming through the pack, but we're in a luxury position that we can maybe split the strategy and go for the win.
Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Carlos, second place today. Unfortunately, you have a penalty for tomorrow's race. How was that race for you? It seemed in the beginning that you didn't quite get the tires where you wanted them. Were you saving them for the end of the race?
Yeah, we normally have a bit more deck than the Mercs, and I could see them pushing quite hard. And yeah, I managed to make all the positions at the start or the first couple of laps, getting the fight with Max and George. I had to be aggressive because obviously tomorrow I'm taking the penalty, and in the end I think P2 was the maximum today. I was happy with the race, happy with the pace. It's just that the Mercs look like they picked up the pace a lot recently, and they are very quick in the race.
There seems to be a little bit of contact between you and Max. You had front wing damage after take. What was your take on that?
It was on the limit for sure. They are so difficult to pass, and I had to really go tight into turn 1 in order to pass him with the Red Bull. You're either aggressive on the braking or you don't pass them because they're so quick on the straight that you really need to go for it on the braking. I'm sorry if I had a bit of contact, but that's racing, and sometimes you need to go for it if you want to make it stick.
Okay, well, does Team Ferrari have something in the bag for tomorrow?
I mean, we have decent pace this weekend. It's just that the Mercs maybe have a little bit more pace. Will be interesting to see tomorrow what happens when we all try the medium, like Verstappen today. See how that medium behaves, and obviously we would need to pass them on track tomorrow because I'm starting P7. I think Charles is starting P4 or P5, so we're gonna need a good race if we want to beat them.
Okay, well, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Lewis, coming on to you. Fantastic race today to come through the field. You're going to have a front row start here on what's now your second home race.
Boa tarde, Brazil. I'm working on my Portuguese. Obrigado. I'm so happy to be here. It's been an incredible week. A difficult day yesterday, but what a crowd we've had today. Starting from 8th, making my way through slowly. Congratulations to George. This just goes to everyone back at the factory, everyone here working on the ground. They've just been working so hard this year. This is an amazing result. For us to be on the front row tomorrow is incredible. So from there, we should be able to work as a team and hold off, hopefully, the guys behind.
You were both unable to really show the full potential of the car in yesterday's qualifying. Can we take this result as evidence of what might happen tomorrow?
We're going to try as hard as we can, yeah. If we can have some good degradation tomorrow, hopefully some good weather, we can have a good fight in our hands.
So you want to give this crowd a win tomorrow, right?
Sorry?
You want to give this crowd a win tomorrow, right?
Sure. A win here for Brazil would be incredible.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's give it up for your top 3.
Obrigado.
So the top 3, George Russell, Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton. It'll be a Mercedes front row lockout for the start of the Brazilian Grand Prix tomorrow, but Verstappen will still be there in 3rd with Perez in 4th. In for a fun race. Make sure you join us 6 p.m. The race gets underway in the UK on Radio 5 Sports Extra and the BBC Sport website and wherever else you listen. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. We'll see you for the Grand Prix tomorrow after a good sprint.